Welcome to Grid Talk. My name is Ruby Price, and join me today once again. We have Louis Edwards
Hello.
and Aaron Harper.
Hello.
So let's continue with our mid-season driver grades. If you missed the first episode, go back and listen to them. We talked about, Colapinto to Oscar Piastri, very much the span of the field. Now we're going to take a look at the other remaining 10 drivers on the grid. And let's start off, Aaron, with Lance Stroll. In the Aston Martin, we've given him a D grade. How would you rate Lance Stroll's races this season?
I gave him an E, and then Louis sprung it on me in the previous episode. He's actually above Fernando Alonso in the championship, so I'm going to just change that to an A. No, I'm kidding. It's an E. I mean, look, Lance is in his eighth season of Formula One, and we're just not seeing the progression. I think there is speed in there, but it's very intermittent. He's had some good results. He goes well in the wet, so Silverstone he benefited from that and good strategy decisions from the pit wall at Aston Martin. But apart from that, it's been really hit and miss, dominated in qualifying by Alonso. Alonso's had some technical issues and a couple of crashes, which, let's be honest, we wouldn't expect from Fernando Alonso. So really, that picture is distorted. Although the picture is the picture of the first half of the season. Yeah, I think we just expect Lance to be making more progression in terms of the speed that he's showing. I guess he's just at the limit of his capabilities, unless this car is just sort of hamstringing him so badly that he can't do anything. But he raced in the other formulas as well, and it wasn't a huge amount better. So unless Aston Martin come out with an absolute rocket in 2026 and Alonso has this massive fall off in performance because he's 1,000 years old, then yeah, I look, we all know why Lance Stroll is there. It's not going to change unless he decides he's bored or wants to go and do something different. And he does an okay job. He's not awful. We have seen several other what you call pay drivers who were absolutely horrific. They were just so bad. He's more than competent, but yes, if you could put a better driver in there, Aston Martin would be better off for it. But look, it's not going to change. He's in there, and we know why. I think we just have to judge him on his performances, and I think an E is maybe fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, give me a Lance Stroll over a Nikita Mazepin any day in terms of pay drivers coming in. But, definitely worth mentioning, maybe it's just because of how safe that seat is, it feels like he almost doesn't need to try as much. So, we then don't see necessarily box office performances. And what would a box office performance for Lance Stroll be? Would it be a podium? Would it be a race win? Would it be a P10? You know, I'll save that for the comments. But Louis, and a driver who's had like obviously a bit of a tumultuous season, a lot of starts from the back with pit lane starts or changes in Parc Ferme, but Yuki Tsunoda, we've given him a D, and he started off this season on form, and that's why he got promoted to the Red Bull team, but on form over two races versus, since moving to Red Bull and just having Red Bull things happen to him. What do you think of Yuki's season so far?
Yeah, mostly the reason why I gave Yuki a D was just because I feel like people may overlook that early, you know, flash of pace that we saw from him. And it looked like he really got his head screwed on, and like finally we're starting to see Yuki Tsunoda that can really push on. Like, because let's face it, over the last couple of seasons, comparative to having De Vries thrown at him, Ricardo and Lawson thrown at him, he's done a very good job. And unfortunately, he is now victim of that Red Bull second seat where it feels like you just get no support. You're just thrown in while everyone tries to think of what's the best thing for Max this weekend. Um, but it doesn't mean he hasn't scored any points. You know, he did score points in Bahrain. He scored points in Miami in both the race and the sprint. Scored points in Imola. But that's been it. And the last few races, he's been right at the back, and that I think is the most concerning thing now is that we're starting to see a Yuki that is not only qualifying near the back, because let's face it, his qualifying results have been generally just been poor in the Red Bull. But we're starting to get to the point where he's starting to just sit at the back and not really um, push forward, and that is concerning for Yuki's long-term future in Formula One. Should he have been pushed up to the Red Bull? No. I think we discussed this. Lawson should have been given more than two races. It was a stupid thing, stupid decision by Red Bull. Yes, Yuki has been in the sport a long time, but you're settling in for a new season, you're getting used to new team, and then suddenly boom, you're thrust in, no testing, no anything, and you're just expected to perform. And he's not doing the best job he can, and that's why he's a D at the end of the day.
Yeah, Red Bull arguably just made the wrong decision, I would say. Like pre-season, obviously making Liam Lawson the driver for that top team. And then Yuki Tsunoda being swapped in after two races. As you mentioned, Liam Lawson had the entire pre-season and pre-season testing to get settled into the Red Bull. Yuki Tsunoda being lifted and shifted from Racing Bulls into the Red Bull team. You're just not going to perform very well, like in the grand scheme of things. And as Aaron has very kindly mentioned as well, Yuki is now 2 points behind Liam Lawson after Lawson's had a couple of strong results more recently. And I'm not saying put Lawson back in the Red Bull seat, but you know, where would Lawson be now if he'd had that consistency and been allowed to, develop as a driver in that team? But we've established this very much already. That car is designed for one person to drive and one person to drive alone. So, unless cloning becomes a thing, I think seeing two Red Bulls on a par is, far-fetched to say the least. Aaron, let's take a look at a former Red Bull driver, but flourishing outside of that team, I guess you could say, even if, maybe things aren't necessarily going as well for Alpine or not, but, a recent, season best result of P6 in Great Britain, Pierre Gasly. We've given him a C. I think that's fairly reasonable.
Yeah, it's not too bad. He's got what 19 points a season have scored. I've given him a C. Look, Gasly's a quality performer. He's a race winner and he's secured himself some podiums as well. So look, if you give him a good car, he will do the business. I don't think he's got that ultimate edge of speed to become maybe a world champion, but it's if he's got a really, really good car, yeah, then yes, it's possible. But this season he's been. I mentioned this about Colapinto. The environment that Alpine is in, they don't know which way is up because there's so much change, and the fact that they've got Flavio Briatore back in, it just doesn't sit right with me in terms of the direction that team is going in. They're spinning off their power unit, and they've got a really good driver, but they I think they have doubts about how good Gasly actually is, and that's why they're thinking, oh, do we get Bottas in? He's a proven race winner, has come from Mercedes, has all the knowledge of what makes a championship winning team tick. Can Gasly live with that? But yeah, Bottas is in his mid 30s. Is he going to be the same Bottas that went up against Hamilton? No. Well, unlikely. So yeah, I like Gasly. I think he's done a really good job this season considering the equipment that he's got. That car, when it has performed, he has performed well in it. When it hasn't performed, he has generally been okay. But I think it goes with the sort of peaks and troughs of that car. And these cars are notoriously bad for being in and out of a setup window. And if you're in it, you're amazing. And if you're out of it, you are going down the toilet. So it's just that situation. And Alpine, with all of the changes they're going through, changing their drivers, changing their management, changing their engine supply, just I don't think that's a conducive environment for anybody, no matter how much experience you've got. And I think Gasly has done well to get 19 points this season.
I would absolutely 100% agree with that. Gasly has done well to be in the position that he's currently in. And I hope Alpine and Renault do take stock of that as well, because, I've similarly seen concerns that Alpine just aren't really treating Gasly with the respect he deserves. And, it could even have longer term impacts on his career, just the fact that Alpine are performing where they're performing at the moment, and it means that Gasly's not in that conversation when it comes to who's, really doing the best with what they've got this season. But yes, Pierre Gasly, a C grade. Let's see how the rest of the season goes. Louis, Kimi Antonelli in his rookie season is driving a eight-time constructors title winning. It's pretty astonishing, I think, to see, in that kind of respect. But, it's not necessarily been the most consistent of seasons for him. And, Imola in itself is probably one of those highlights of not necessarily being a highlight. But how have you made Kimi's season so far this season?
I think coming in as a rookie, he's just been pretty pretty good. The way that he's kind of propelled his way into Formula One, just going from F4 straight to F2 and then into F1, like in back-to-back years is a crazy development. And not only that, he's scored himself a podium this season in Canada. But these last couple of races have kind of unwound a lot of what he's tried to do. He's had a lot of DNFs this year. He's four DNFs. We already mentioned the one in Imola, and then Spain was unfortunate, and then Austria was just silly to crash out on the first lap. It's just a bit silly, but he's doing okay. He's a lot of people had a lot of expectations for what Antonelli was going to do this year. He came in with a lot of hype behind him, a lot of noise. What is he going to do? Is he going to be up there with Russell? He's this young prodigy. Someone is this the driver that Toto Wolff sees as a future as the team. And he's definitely not been where Russell has been this season. Russell has been the leader, the better driver. He's been consistently getting those podiums, those points, getting everything out of the car. But Antonelli's had his moments, and he's usually in the points. And I think that's as much as you can really ask for as a driver in his rookie year. Trying to score as many points as possible. Don't do anything too stupid. Obviously, it's your rookie season. Things are going to go wrong from time to time. But he's doing what he can, and I think a C is a pretty, it's an average grade for what has been a pretty average performance. Not good, but not horrific.
Antonelli's season hasn't been maybe as bad as the DNFs maybe make it look. Three-quarters of those weren't his fault. The Austria one, absolutely his fault. He got that completely wrong. And you'd expect that from a rookie, especially fighting at the front. It's a brand new environment. But I think what you saw in Canada was when the car was really good, he was able to go with it and make the most of it. He followed Verstappen for a lot of that race. And there was a point where I thought, actually, this could be a Mercedes 1-2. So when the opportunity is there, he's shown he's got it. And I think that's all Mercedes need to see. There is obviously the whole Max Verstappen, will they, won't they? It's like a Ross and Rachel sort of vibe with Mercedes and Max, isn't it? So, yeah, is he doing enough to stay in the seat in any reasonable situation? Yes, but with a four-time world champion potentially on the market, maybe not. But then let's see what happens with George Russell's contract as well. But I think Kimi has, like sort of like Louis said, he's been fine. I think we would have expected a little bit more. But I think also you look at it as a rookie, he's what, 18 years old? So I think we can excuse him a few mistakes and a couple of off days here and there. So there's all the building blocks are there. Just give him time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Tom Horrocks at the very least to give a shout out to the Monkey Seat podcast, our, sister podcast, will be very happy because he's currently in seventh, which means that if this continues, he doesn't need to do a naked podcast if he loses that bet with Carl. But Carl just needs him to lose one position, and currently I don't think it looks like Antonelli's gonna lose that position. But, a good season, I think, so far from a rookie that, obviously everybody was expecting the world from. But, you know, looking at that Mercedes and where it is, I think if Kimi Antonelli were to win a race this season, that would be something magical. But it's not going to happen, I don't think. But, speaking of a bit of magic as well, like Gabriel Bortoleto has, got that sort of aura around him of, there's something here to develop, Aaron. But, we've given him a C so far for this season. He's only had 1 point finish, but, given the performance that his teammate has shown in that Sauber, might a C necessarily be a bit irrespective?
I think a C is fair because you have to judge it in the context of things. He's the reigning back-to-back F3, F2 champion, and he's been put into a car that's the back of the grid. And look, his Formula 2 season last year was fantastic. He absolutely earned his spot on the grid. It's a shame that he had to go into the slowest car. I think if you put him into the Racing Bulls or the Haas, he would be doing a very good job, the same as Behrman and Hadjar have done. The Austria race was really good. There have been some other races where it's not quite come together. I think about the move with Fernando Alonso in Jeddah. And look, like I said about Kimi just now, he's a rookie, young driver, still learning. We can excuse a few mistakes, but again, you're seeing the building blocks are there, the speed is there. He can put the race together when the opportunity arises. He can take that car into places it maybe doesn't deserve to be. There was a bit of chaos in Austria, but you've still got to be in it to win it. And that result was fantastic for the team. He's got a great benchmark in Hulkenberg, someone who, if he is a bit of a sponge, he can absorb a lot of knowledge from and a lot of learning to do. And I think getting this year out of the way, get some of the mistakes out, and if Audi come in and they can deliver a decent engine and a decent chassis, put that team solidly in the midfield for 2026, we'll see the true Gabriel Bortoleto come out because it's showing in glimpses and he's just waiting to put his head above the parapet and say, hello, look at me. I'm a megastar in waiting. And my word, does Brazil need a megastar in waiting in Formula One because they have been starved of someone to support forever. And now they've got. I cannot wait for the Brazilian Grand Prix because I think Gabriel Bortoleto is going to have such a shock to the system. And I think he'll absolutely enjoy it. But he'll come away from that weekend going, oh my word, this is absolutely crazy because when they get behind their driver, they get behind their driver. So, yeah, I've been looking forward to the Samba beat down in Sao Paulo, all in
It,
support of Bortoleto.
are you telling me that Felipe Nasr is not a five-star world-class mega driver?
And nor is Felipe Massa.
Oh wait, which one's Fred? Anyway, but yes, like five-star megastar in the works. But if you enjoy this podcast and consider it a five-star megastar podcast, we'd love it if you could take five to leave us a five-star rating on Spotify or a five-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening and aren't currently subscribed to the channel, please consider helping us out with a like and a subscribe. And why not support us on Patreon if you'd like further access and exclusive content. And let's move on now to the last quarter of our driver grades across this two episode, mammoth like recording. Louis, we're going to take a look at Lewis Hamilton, signed for Ferrari, shocked the world, made arguably every Formula One driver's dream. And it's been a bit mid, really, hasn't it? Like, obviously, he did get that he did get the win for the sprint in China. He has been on the podium in terms of the sprint, but statistically, this has been Lewis Hamilton's worst season so far in Formula One. Is it worthy of a C grade?
Yeah. It's like he's just been like while the performances may not be what we've expected, they've not been terrible. If Lewis was consistently bottom end of the points, out of the points, we'd be going, wow, something is really up. We'd be giving him a D grade. Oh my God, it's an absolute disaster. If he was getting more podiums, like more consistently, or being kind of like what Charles has been doing this season, then we'd give him a B. He's not really done that. that. So yeah, it's very much been a C. He has scored points at every race. He's doing what he needs to do. He's learning, he's adapting, he's having to suppress the utter frustration that it is driving a Ferrari with having the Ferrari engineers in your ear telling you just horrific information at completely the wrong time. There's a lot to juggle for Lewis Hamilton, and I think he's dealing with it in the probably the best way he can. It's going to be slow progress for the rest of the season, and it wouldn't surprise me when we get to other tracks that he's a lot more comfortable at. I said this at the beginning of the season, like I said, Silverstone would be a good race for him because it's a track that he likes. Hungary will be a good race, I reckon. Sao Paulo will be a great race. There are these tracks where Lewis just shines, and I think that will come. And there's probably a better thing that a lot of them are towards the latter half of the season because he'll be more confident. He'll be more, aware of what this car can and cannot do. It's all a big learning process, and Lewis is doing the best he can, but it's not blowing the world. It's not atrocious. Therefore, C seems perfectly reasonable to me.
I think if you take the context of Lewis Hamilton and who he is and what he's achieved out of it, if you said Charles Leclerc is your lead Ferrari driver and your driver B is racking up really solid points, he's close enough to push Leclerc, and they're second in the constructors' championship, you'd be going, well, they're doing everything they need to do with that car because they were going in hoping to win the championship. The car's clearly not up to it, but they're going to finish second probably because Red Bull literally only have one car. And Mercedes, George Russell has some good days. Antonelli's a bit up and down at the moment. So Ferrari should finish second. And that's probably where they're going to finish. So if you take the it's Lewis Hamilton factor out of the equation, it's fine. So you reinsert the it's Lewis Hamilton bit and you go, well, yeah, maybe he could do a little bit. But you've got to put it into context. And like Louis said, lots of learning. He's challenging the engineers in terms of saying, well, this is how I've done things. Let's try this. Why are you doing it that way? There's a whole, he's only ever worked with Mercedes power units. So there's a whole different way of working with the Ferrari power unit, and like the buttons will be in a different place, the way you deploy it, and things like that. So, like I mentioned on the previous episode about Carlos Sainz, it's about breaking everything, putting those processes and systems in place for 2026, when he'll be hoping that Ferrari deliver the business, give him the engine and the car like Mercedes did in 2014, and he's able to go and scoop that eighth world championship. I think Charles Leclerc would be a much more difficult proposition to beat than Nico Rosberg was that year, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun if they do. That's not including that all of the other nine teams could all deliver amazing machinery to their drivers. So we'll wait and see. But I think Lewis's season, as Lewis said, is a C grade. He's doing absolutely fine. We've just got to put it all into context.
I think you'll find, Darren, it's the other 10 teams because of course we have a new outfit joining us for 2026 of Cadillac. But yes, absolutely, the Lewis Hamilton like context aside, even with led into that question obviously saying it's his statistically worst season ever in his Formula One career. But I'd argue that like the 2022, 2023 Mercedes was not in a position really to be, he was finishing outside the points and even laps down in some of those races. Whereas with the Ferrari this season, as Louis said, he's been consistently in the points and, it's just been a case of just not having those magical moments where he's able to do it. And Silverstone could have been one of those magical moments, but Nico Hulkenberg was just a bit further down the field. But, it was so close, in the grand scheme of things. And I think, he didn't sign with Ferrari to win in 2025. He signed with them for 2026 and onwards, but we'll see how it goes. Yes. So let's look at the last of our C grade drivers. And Aaron, other than maybe kind of like a bit of a misjudged qualifying and practice, weekend in Silverstone. It's been all right for Oliver Behrman, and I think worthy of a C grade if we're considering that like average. But for someone in his first full-time season of Formula One, I think it's been very good and has shown that this is a driver with a lot of potential for the future as well.
Absolutely. Like if you take the whole fact that yes, he was what 15th in Formula 2 last season and still got a Formula 1 drive. I don't think that's what the F1 teams are looking at now. They're looking at the feedback you can give the team. How do you work with the engineers? Are you fast? And are you fast? They are the top two priorities for these Formula 1 teams. Oliver Behrman is very fast. And it's like I said about Bortoleto and Antonelli, all of the building blocks are there. I mean, it's not going to happen. Let's say the likes of Russell and Norris and Piastri and Verstappen and Hamilton and Leclerc all moved on at once. That group have the sort of capacity to sort of lead this sport and be the superstars. And Behrman has shown in glimpses that it's all there. It's just about piecing it together. These cars are difficult to get your head round and to be consistent in. They take a little bit of time to get used to. Obviously, they're going to change for 26, but I think Behrman's done a good job. The performances have been good. He's picked up points. He's challenged Ocon. He's not been completely outclassed. Yes, there have been some mistakes. Rookies will make mistakes. That's why they call it a rookie season. You were allowed to make some mistakes. The one at Silverstone was quite bad, and the red flag in Monaco also quite bad, and they really hurt his opportunities in both those races. I think if in Silverstone, had he started in P8, maybe he'd have picked up some more points. But he still drove a really good race to stay out of trouble and finish in 11th. So yeah, I don't see any reason why Ferrari would be going, oh yeah, maybe this guy's not as good as we thought, and has to be like, can we get someone else in, please? It's absolutely not panic stations yet for Ollie Behrman, but definitely some work to do in terms of tidying things up and just neatening and polishing things together. So I think it's about fair that he gets a C. It's a rookie season for a reason.
A rookie season for a reason. And yeah, I think, like maybe someone in Haas does need to show him what you're supposed to do under a red flag because I think he's had multiple red flag infringements this season. So maybe just a bit of, go to class, brush up on his red flag rules. Maybe he'll get a higher grade for the second half of the season. But let's look at that final rookie then, Louis. And Isaac Hadjar, I think, has really been the standout driver of the rookies coming into 2025 this season. He's delivered in a car that, really is lower midfield, if not like slightly, lucky to be in the point sometimes. But the Racing Bulls, they have shown on occasion that they can come up with a masterstroke strategy that might look a bit like it's not part of the sport of Formula One, obviously referring to Monaco, but Isaac Hadjar or Isaac Hadjar, I'm not sure which way it's pronounced because everybody keeps pronouncing it both ways, but 5 points finishes, 21 points, he's 11th in the championship, and we've given him a B. Would you agree?
Yes, because out of the rookies, I think he has been doing the best, and we've given pretty much every rookie a C, apart from the obvious Alpine crew and Liam Lawson, his current. Well, do we still consider Lawson a rookie? I swear F1 keep calling him a rookie. Um, but he's been doing a great job. You start the season, you picture yourself as Isaac Hadjar. You start the season, you're like, okay, rookie season. I'm with Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki's been in F1. This is like his fifth season now, or something like that in Formula One. It's an opportunity to learn and to develop. You're new into the Red Bull. You just got to, make a name for yourself. Within three races, your teammate's gone. You've inherited a new teammate who is completely and utterly dejected after being ripped of his, you know, biggest dream of Formula One drive for Red Bull. It's just been ripped away from him. And suddenly you're in now this position where you kind of have to lead the team. You are a rookie three races in, but you now have to perform because, let's face it, your teammate's not going to and there's now a lot of like eyes on that team for what it will do. And then he gets points straight away. Boom. That's just like that. Gets points in Japan. And he's had a pretty consistent run of it in terms of points since then. And he's, outperforming Lawson by quite some way. Getting points and getting good points when you wouldn't expect that Racing Bull to be doing as well as it's been doing. And I think it's all hats up. It's an unenviable position to be in, having to be that lead driver in your rookie season. But I think he's dealing with it incredibly well. And I think what he's doing is a very good job. The momentum has kind of slowed in this last few races. I just don't think that RB is very good. And unfortunately, a lot of those other midfield teams are starting to improve. And when you've got the likes of Sauber who are starting to really pick it up, Haas are always capable of getting points. Aston Martin are not as terrible as they were at the start of the season. Unfortunately, that car is starting to slip back. But yeah, I still think he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, the car might not be as good as it looks. That livery, I've got to give a shout out to the livery for the Racing Bulls. It is one of the best liveries on the grid this season. But, the car might not look as good as it's performing other way around. The car doesn't perform as well as it looks, but Hadjar is certainly doing a good job, I think, in a rookie season as well. And, hats off to the guy. It looked devastating in Australia, but and that could have, spiraled it even worse, but he's really bounced back from that. And as you say, is leading a team in his rookie season who I wouldn't want that on my shoulders for sure. Um, but Aaron, another driver who is currently leading his way in the team and doing such a stellar job as well, I think, as I think you alluded to in the first half of these driver grade shows. Alex Albon, we've given him a B, 8 points finishes, 46 points. He's eighth in the championship as well, and it's just been exactly what Alex Albon needed, I think, this season so far.
I'm not surprised Alex Albon has done so well this season. He is a quality driver. He's fast and he's reliable. He doesn't crash particularly often. The Williams has had its ups and downs with sort of technical faults, mostly on Sainz's side, but in some aspects he's made Sainz look very average. But there's context to the Sainz situation. So Albon has really picked up the ball and run with it and scored those points. They've got what is it, 59 points as a team. They're fifth in the Constructors' Championship. If you'd offered that to James Vowles at the start of the season and say, yeah, you're going to have 59 points, sit P5 in the standings, he'd have snapped your hand off for it because he'd have said, well, we're not doing anything with this car because we're building everything for 2026. And Albon is delivering on the backing that Williams have given him. They threw him a lifeline and he is repaying that faith in terms of giving them his loyalty. He's no longer affiliated directly with Red Bull, although I'm sure if they came knocking, he might go back. Depends on how he feels and what the Williams is up to. But he is repaying their faith. They're backing him all the way. And I think in James Vowles, he's got the perfect sort of guidance in terms of a team principal who's not going to get too carried away with things and he's going to back his driver but he's also going to say, Alex, you need to pull your socks up if you need to. So he's in a really, really good place, and you can really see that with his driving. He's confident enough to almost call out the team and go, "Why aren't you listening to me? Why are we not doing this?" So you can tell when a driver feels comfortable in their surroundings that they're able to do that, and he's delivering on track. Some excellent drives, and long may it continue because I think Alex Albon is a driver who had those opportunities to win, and it needs to come back around. A bit like Hulkenberg, it needs to come back around for him to have those opportunities again now that he's improved and show that yes, he can capitalize on those opportunities.
Yeah, and I think touching on what you were just saying as well about being comfortable in a position where he can tell the team that, they're not listening to him or they've done something wrong. On the other side of that coin, in Silverstone, the last race weekend we just had, he owned up that he was the person that made a mistake on like choosing the direction for the car to go and things like that. So he's also in a position where he feels comfortable to admit that he's making mistakes and you can't have success without failure. And part of that is admitting that you have failed, and you know that's another sign of a maturing driver. You're not going to get it right every time, so own up when you do. And yeah, I think a solid job from Alex Albon all around this season. Just needs a bit more from the Williams, and hopefully 2026 is where it's coming because once again, this is basically the 2024 Challenger with a bit of new paint and also a few body modifications as well. But let's get on to the final driver of the 21 drivers we have been grading so far. And of course, the only driver left to talk about is Lando Norris in a championship fight with his teammate. He's only 8 points behind him, but we've only given him a B, Louis. Is it what's the reason for this? Is it because Lando's just not performing very well, or is it that, we expect a bit more from him?
It's because he shouldn't be 8 points behind. He should be like 20 points ahead. Let's face it. Lando has kind of shot himself in the foot numerous times this season, which is the reason why I didn't give him an A. It's just those times where you just like, God's sake, Lando, get a grip. Be it in qualifying with underwhelming qualifying or just not doing the best, or even in races where the team or just Lando seems to have lacked ambition and not gone for the win. I always hark back to Japan. It's the biggest missed opportunity McLaren have, thrown away in the last couple of years. That race was right there. You had both Lando and Oscar right behind Max, and yet they did nothing. He could have won that race. And then Bahrain, he was just off the pace and not doing great. Same with Saudi. Those sort of back-to-back weekends were not particularly great showings from Lando and really started to cast a lot of doubt, I think, in people's mind of whether he's ready um, to challenge. But he has kind of picked it up in these last few races, minus the obvious, very stupid error that he made in Canada. Without that crash in Canada, he genuinely could be leading the World Championship right now. It's just needs to be better. Austria was the first time this season when I've gone, finally, we're seeing what Lando can do. He withstood all the pressure that Oscar was throwing at him with not only with the on-track battle, but then with the offset strategy that the other garage was doing. He managed to withstand all of that and win. And while some may argue the race win was gifted to him at Silverstone, he did exactly what he needed to do. He didn't let Oscar run away with it and just build a gap. And you know, he was solid from the end. The start was a little shaky, nearly almost got overtaken by Lewis right at the beginning, and then did kind of make a bit of a meal of trying to get past Verstappen. But that sort of latter, when all the conditions were changing, he dealt with it properly, and he did a really good job. There is I think there's more to see from Lando this season, and if he can just turn it on that little bit more, be what I think, like Aaron said in the first half, just be what Oscar is right now. Bit more consistent, just a little bit more on it. Just try not to have these kind of mistakes. Lando will be right there. And I still do personally think that Lando is the better driver out of the pair. But he's going to have to really work to beat Oscar this season because Oscar has got all the confidence he needs to push on and win the championship.
I wouldn't say it's clear that Lando is the better driver. I think he's the ultimate faster driver. I think there's a lot more that goes into being a better driver. But Louis, you're absolutely spot on. Mistakes are the key word. Oscar has made one mistake this season, and that was Silverstone with the restart. Lando has made several, although his high points have been phenomenally high. Winning the opening race in Australia, well, Piastri did make a mistake there. He went off and spun, and that cost him a lot of points. But yeah, Lando withstood Verstappen's charge late on there, winning in Monaco with Leclerc breathing down his neck basically the entire race as people were backing each other up and playing all sorts of games. That was funny. But he still had to navigate all of those lapped cars without, getting tangled in an unnecessary incident, losing a position. The pole position lap was incredible. So the highs have been really high. But like you say, if he can sort of bring maybe that level slightly down and plateau it with bring the low point a little bit higher and just achieve that consistency, his ultimate speed ceiling is slightly higher than Oscar's. That would be enough to turn the momentum and win him the World Championship. For all the mistakes that he's made so far this season, if you think about the China sprint, Jeddah crashing in qualifying, making a meal of getting past Verstappen in Miami, Canada in qualifying and in the race, for him to be only 8 points behind, that's actually a really strong position to be in because Piastri will be looking and going, I've had such a great season, but I'm only 8 points ahead. You can argue that both of them should be maybe 30 points clear for different reasons. So if you're Lando Norris, you've won the last two races. You're going to Spa, you're going to Hungary. If he can knock off a win or two there and take the championship lead, he will be looking over the other side of the garage and going, right, I need to come back from the season break and rub his nose in it and really sort of put his foot down, accelerate, build the gap, and then all the pressure's on Piastri. So there's a fascinating dynamic here for the end of the season. I am so intrigued to see how this pans out. I think a B is absolutely fair for Lando. He will admit he's made too many mistakes, and for him to be only 8 points back, it might just be name on the trophy sort of thing. Maybe this is Lando's year, but that's getting a bit too carried away. Still got half a season to go yet.
Still half a season to go yet, but we're all picturing this very amicable Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton situation of, switching up for the second half of the season almost. But yes, those are our driver grades. Please do let us know in the comments or on social media what you think so far of the drivers for 2025, not 2024. But yes, Aaron, Aaron, anything you want to plug at this opportunity?
So I've got a YouTube channel, AHGP, where I do some F1 manager experiments and I do some F1 25 league racing. You can see some of that live streamed on Twitch, which is AHGP 41. So I've got a community league which races on Fridays, and we've got a max power engine save where I'm managing a created team, and it's just chaos. The cars crash for basically no reason, and it's hilarious. It's just a lot of fun.
Just a lot of fun, absolutely. That's what we want to see. And Louis, anything you want to plug at this opportunity?
Nothing personally, but I would love it if you would check out our Grid Talk socials, which is at Grid Talk UK on any platform that you consume your social media. And yeah, you can get involved in our predictions league that we have been doing with our hosts this season. If we're giving ourselves mid mid sort of mid-season grades, I'd probably give myself about a C. Aaron like an A, he's at the top. Ruby, I'll let you decide. And yeah, it's been quite crazy the last few weeks. Some really big scores, some perfect podiums. I was robbed by Nico Hulkenberg from my perfect podium. Can't believe it. But it's nothing. It's nothing. But yeah, if you want to get involved and give us your own predictions for what you think will happen on a race weekend, make sure to head over to our socials and get involved.
Yes, absolutely. Please do. Having a lot of fun with this predictions league that we've had going on this season. I hope it continues. If you want to hear more from me, I'm at Ruby Rose Price on Instagram and Threads and at Rubes on Blue Sky. But I'm also going to give a plug to Beyond the Grid Talk, our Patreon exclusive podcast. We are recording a very fun episode in the next few weeks, and I'm really excited about that. So you'll be able to get all the details on that on our Patreon, Grid Talk, patreon.com/Grid Talk UK, I believe. If it's not, it's in the description beneath me. But Grid Talk is available on YouTube as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Cast. Just search Formula One Grid Talk for our back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to the race results. Thank you to Jared Bradley and Holly Eagle for supporting us on Patreon. If you want to support the show further, why not sign up to our Patreon for exclusive content? Also, make sure you subscribe to the first to know when each new episode is released. I'll be back soon with plenty more Formula One content. Thank you very much to Aaron and Louis for joining me. This has been a mammoth session in, a heat wave in Britain and just a warm day in Japan. I'm not quite sure. But thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast, and goodbye.